What's up, everybody? You know what really grinds my gears? Liberals. LARPing is these crazy America First white nationalist fake Christian, and this is what bothers me the most: the fake Christianity, right? So everything they sort of believe, the philosophical foundation of the way they think, is liberalism. It's wokeism. It's division, right? It's balkanizing the country. It is along with this is this sort of hedonistic following around of their own sense of self-superiority. Sound familiar? That they sort of hop from place to place on the internet or wherever, trying to perform superiority to their fellow Americans while saying they're patriots, to their fellow human beings while saying they're Christians. And you know, that really grinds my gears as a patriotic American, that these people would mock and ridicule the faith of millions of Americans by claiming to be Christians, while, you know, basically upholding the tenets of Satanism, right? And I'm not a religious guy, don't get me wrong, but isn't that the only tenet of Satanism? Do what thou wilt, or whatever the Church of Satan weirdos say. It's wild to me that they call themselves Christians while following their desire to perform superiority to other people around, like with a complete lack of self-discipline. This is the precise opposite of what Jesus Christ and the Gospels teach. And if you say you're a Christian and you don't live by the teachings of Jesus Christ and the Gospel, well, guess what? You ain't a Christian. All you are at that point is a LARPer. I don't know. But what do you guys think? You know, let me know if you have any thoughts on that in your calls today, which we're going to get to right now. All right, that's my fancy little intro. I only got a few seconds. Like I say all the time, I'm not very creative, but how y'all doing today? Sorry about the rant. That bothers me to no end. These LARPing liberals and their ridiculous cartoon world that they live in, you know, with their sort of like nonsense about Jewish people being in control of everything, and they believe every stupid little graphic that gets put their way. A couple months ago, the infrared guys did a joke, right? A joke meme that said like, all American communists are Jewish, proven. And it was just like a Star of David drawn on like Haz's face, and like all these people that clearly aren't Jewish, but they bought it because that's what they do. Ridiculous nonsense. Anyway, today's the second episode of Noah's show, the creatively named show by yours truly, where we talk to you guys. We always say this, we want this to be a people's institute, right? This isn't just my institute or you know, Carlos's or Eddie's or Danny's or Kyle's. This is all of you guys institute, and we want you to take part in it. So if you have a question about Marxism, or how to talk to your coworkers about communism and the workers movement, or anything else, hit us up in the Discord. There is a link in the pinned comment on here. It'll get you in there. Scroll down to the part that says Noah's show and tag our producer Daniel. Tell him what your topic is, and we'll get you on the show. Even if it's not about Marxism, if you just want to complain about your boss, right? Or if you think, Marxism is stupid and you want to tell me all about how stupid I am, come on in, have at it. Now, full disclosure, every single person who's ever told me that hasn't really understood what Marxism was, but maybe you'll be the first. You never know, right? All right. So, without any further ado, what do you guys think? Should we just kick this thing off? Should we get going? Yeah. All right. Let's do it. Who do we got first, Daniel? Awesome. We love Future Homestead. Before you get started, though, Future Homestead, I want to remind everybody that this is a people's funded institute. We are shadow banned and algorithmically suppressed. So please, please, please like and share the stream if you can. Or send a super chat if you have a question and you don't want to come on. That'll make sure I get it. And every dollar of those goes to funding the institute and gets you cool things like this new camera that doesn't make me look like I'm sickly and about to throw up all the time. How you doing, sister? What's your question? No, absolutely not. How could you? How dare? No, of course. Go ahead. Oh, hold on a minute. I'm hearing that we don't have Discord audio, so I'm gonna back up for a minute because I'm a very big dum dum and I mess up the beginning of every show. So hold your horses, Emily, and I'm going to fix this real quick. Okay, give me one moment. I apologize. Whoops. All right, we're almost ready. I apologize, guys. I'm terrible at this. Here we go. All right, Future Homestead, you are going to be able to be heard now. So, do you want to repeat that? I apologize to everybody. It's not, one of my shows if I don't screw up the beginning. So, let's go.
Yeah, so I was saying this is not actually my question. I was encouraging a comrade to submit it, but they weren't free, so I'm asking it for them. It was a pretty long question, but I'll try to summarize it. Basically, we're Canadians, and their concern is that they're on board with the project, but it's more about marketing. So I guess we're calling ourselves patriots, of course, patriotic communists. Um, and yet we're kind of presenting ourselves under the banner of the American Communist Party. And so how do we how do we I guess talk to those workers who are a little bit concerned that um we're just denying our like national identity
Right.
by
Getting subsumed by the Americans, basically.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. In regards to talking to Canadian workers, co-workers, family, whatever, I would suggest first bringing up hockey. No, I'm stupid. Don't listen to my jokes. They're bad. No, here's the thing about Canada. Canada is still a British colony, right? It's still under the monarchy and never sort of had that anti-colonial revolution that begins the process of becoming a people for the American people or the Mexican people, or anything like that. So that's one aspect of this I want to make sure we keep in mind. And the other is that when we say American communists, yes, there's a sense in which we mean it, we're from the United States of America. But there's also
Mhm.
a sense that we are part of this greater project in this hemisphere. I don't like saying Pan Americanism because it sounds very kitschy, but that's kind of what it is, right? That the working class of all the nations and all the peoples here in the Americas have a sort of shared history, and especially Canada and the US, because our cultures are so similar, our histories are so similar, except for that sort of process of anti-colonial struggle that you guys up there haven't sort of carried out as of yet. So I would say that um, in order to be a Canadian patriot, you would have to keep these things in mind, right? That we're such a similar thing, and that while you have like a unique struggle there, it is also at the same time part of this greater struggle of all of the people in North America. I might, say that uh, Quebec might be a little bit different of a story there, but do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's where I'm from.
Mm. And frankly, um, if we were to sort of uh, allow these sort of leftists of the last period and all of their, fake communist parties they had going on, dominance over this, I think we would be missing something. I think that
Mhm.
their time is over because, and they failed, right? Does anyone even know that there's a Communist Party of Canada? I don't think they do, right? Uh, so for me, I think it's exciting to see that people in Canada want to be part of this project. Now, I can't really speak for the party necessarily, as these sort of things will be um, sort of discussed by everyone, not just in the executive board, but um, in the entire party as we build our constitution at the first Congress, which is coming up at the end of next month, I believe. So I don't want to like sort of uh, box ourselves into something that we won't, a direction we won't end up going, because I'm always open to, having my mind changed about things. But that's where I see it at the moment. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that actually brings me to my nenext question. It's almost like we had the same line of thinking.
Mhm,
And so this got me thinking about, I guess the Constitution, right? Because
mhm,
this is a big question that I guess a lot of us in Canada are having. Like, I feel like some people are maybe a little bit spooked about the annexing Canada thing, and we're trying to explain to them, well, trying to like word it in a different way that doesn't make it so scary sounding.
mhm, mhm.
um, and so I guess that brings me to my question, which is, I wonder, like, what is the process that you guys are going to be using to form the party constitution? What process are you guys using to choose, I guess who's part of the executive committee? Are you guys like doing a vote with the constitution? Like, is there going to be an opportunity for members to participate, or is that going to be something you guys are going to form and uh, vote on, maybe?
It's a good question. So regarding the Constitution, how this generally is supposed to work, how we see it working, is that the draft of the Constitution is drawn up by the executive board and then goes to the chapters to be ratified, sort of the way the Constitution of the US worked, right? It was drawn up at the Constitutional Congress and then had to be ratified, and you had all the amendments and the Bill of Rights and all that kind of stuff, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Regarding how the executive board got to where it is, um, we sort of had this very, it was done not quickly, but without a lot of bureaucracy, I would say. But everybody was sort of nominated and voted into the office from the people on hand not just from the plenary committee, but those who were supporting it within the purge clubs of the old party, bringing the sort of infrastructure with them.
Mhm.
So yeah, I hope, does that answer your question? Is that
Oh,
sort of
yeah,
give
it
you a clearer
does.
picture?
It does. Yeah, it wasn't meant to be like a interrogating question, it was just, like, interested to see kind of,
Of course.
how are things working behind the scenes, you know?
Well, so behind the scenes, the executive board, we sort of dislike bureaucracy for its own sake. Most decisions we make, believe it or not, are made by consensus. Um,
Yeah, that's cool.
like I don't. There are only a few things we've had to actually have votes on because we all sit and hear each other out and listen to each other. And if someone, since we're all sort of in this to see the class struggle put above all and the success of the party put above all, our priorities are all in the same place. So every one of us are always open to having our minds changed. For instance, we had a hours long discussion about the question of dues, right? And Haas, who we actually voted into the position of chairman of the executive board, he's been very, very against dues the entire time, and I was for it. I saw it as a sort of necessity, right? But after a few hours of discussion, I came around. And the way we see the party being able to sustain itself without this, I think will actually end up working a lot better than the dues structure. A lot of the problem with dues is that look at the old sort of leftist organizations, right? They're dues machines. They recruit as many people as possible, get them paying money, and then the leading clique use that money to fly around the country first class and support themselves and blah blah blah. We didn't even want a hint of that sort of disgusting behavior. Um, we want us to be able to make it or break it on our own accord. Um,
Mhm.
so each chapter is encouraged to begin looking into a business that the party can sort of help out with, right? And fund itself that way. And yeah, I think in the long run, it will really end up a lot better. What do you
Yeah,
think?
that's great. It's glad to hear that you guys are having those kinds of, like, open-minded discussion behind closed doors and, yeah, and, I'm excited. I'm in the party, and so I hope to get to work and talk to you guys more soon.
Awesome. Well,
Thank
that's
you, Noah.
awesome to hear. You've always been brilliant and dedicated from what I've seen, and I look forward to a long, long future of working with you, sister, or comrade, I should say now. Um, it's been a long time since I felt anyone deserved the word comrade, but I'm getting used to saying it again.
Me too, me
All
too.
right. Well, have a great night, sister.
Thank
Let's
you.
go keep it moving here. You know, before we get to the next caller though, um, I want to talk about the importance of dynamism in the way a communist party operates. A lot of organizations get stuck on sort of procedure for procedure's sake. Do you have any idea how many meetings that I've sat through about other 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 meetings that I've sat through? Oh, it is mind numbing the amount of arbitrariness this creates, the amount of clicks and infighting it creates. But if we all keep our eyes on the prize and we sort of have what structure is necessary without going overboard and doing things for the sake of people's egos or whatever, then a lot more can get done. We don't need to, second and third and motion carried and vote on every single thing. If we are all reasonable people, and talk it out. It's very, I don't know. It seems that empty bureaucracy is what kills organizations, yet people are tied to it. I see a really good comment from Slava here who says, Red Libs are saying there are no women in the party, but as you can see, Future Homestead is part of ACP, and I am too, and many more. Yeah, it's funny. I was, I got the, I had the privilege to sit in on a talk that our own Carlos Garrido gave at the Oakland Marxist Library. Was it yesterday? It could have been the day before. I forget. And someone said this same thing. And it's like, where are you getting this information from? And how are you not trying to verify it rather than repeat it? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Anyway, who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey, Noah. One sec. I'm going to get our comrade, Red Chilean, in here. Red Chilean, very, 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 very important comrade around these parts.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to sum up all the contributions that Red's been making to the Institute. And I think it was also first day of school, so Red had an interesting day of class registrations. So
awesome.
What's up?
Congrats on that, brother. And yeah, without Red, this show wouldn't be put together. We would be useless using Discord. He has done so much for the Institute behind the scenes. So everybody give him a giant round of applause wherever you are. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to turn on my camera.
It's on.
Might not be.
Oh, now it's off.
Oh, it's on?
Oh, it was.
Strange. Okay, it's not showing up on my end, so I don't know what I look like, but I'll take your word for it. Maybe, I'm just trying to mess with my settings here. It's too bad. You tell me you can see me?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's good enough for me. How you doing, Noah? How's the show been going?
I'm doing great. The first episode last week was fantastic. All the callers were far smarter than me. Obviously, I'm kind of a buffoon. What are you gonna do?
You're too humble.
Well, thank you, brother. But yeah, I think it's going well. I think it's really important to sort of bring people into the Institute and make them part of it. So, fuck it, here we are, right?
Cool. I mean, I'll just dive. Actually, before I can dive into my question, I should give some context. I'm running the. I'm not really running it. It's just for legal reasons you got to put names in places. But I'm the campaign manager for a comrade of mine. His name is Gaston Flores. In the long shot chance that anybody in the audience lives in Bio Bio, Chile, vote for Gaston Flores for your councillor, and vote for Javier Sandoval for the regional councillor. But
tell them which party you guys are from, brother.
We are from the Chilean Communist Party, Proletarian Action. We're in a similar situation to you guys with the CPA and the old Communist Party, which is very sad, in a very sad state of affairs, to put it as diplomatically as I will. We have signed a pact with another party, which we have found to be very principled and we're interested in working with them, which is the Equality Party, Partido de Igualdad, whose their figurehead here in my city is Javier Sandoval, who, funnily enough, actually, he's the son of Chile in exile during the dictatorship. He grew up in Cuba and had Cuban education. He came back with his family once the dictatorship ended, and he's been involved in politics ever since.
Fantastic! That's great.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. I've had more meetings with him than I can count. But I got a lot of respect for him. He's a principled one. he was in the same movement, student movement that the current president came out of, but unlike him, he didn't sell his soul, and for it, all he got was, a lot more work and about little pay, very little pay.
It seems that the more work you do, the less you make when you don't sell your soul, right?
Yep, but it's gonna take principle to change this world, and we need more people like him.
Couldn't agree more.
So, anyways, with that context, as a campaign manager, we've been discussing certain proposals, certain things that we can lift up as points of contention, points of struggle, to highlight in the election. We know we're not going to win. The amount of money, maybe for a councillorship, maybe one of our guys will win, but for you to really you're not going to change your country through elections. I think everyone's on the same page here. Right. Nevertheless, we've been brainstorming what do we want to highlight, what do we want to put forward. So I wanted to ask you guys over there in America, what do you guys see as like central points of struggle, certain central points of class struggle that you guys have been working over there? Because you can never have too many ideas, I suppose.
Yeah, those are big questions, brother. So regarding where we see things in the U.S., we see this era as the era of the death of the middle classes, of what I call reproletarianization. And here's the problem with, so during the rise of industrial capital, you have what they call proletarianization, right? All these people falling out of a stable middle class, whether they're in the peasantry or they're petty artisans or whatever, falling down into precarity and proletarianizing, right? Being thrust into these giant factories of the ruling class, of the bourgeois class, that were always expanding because capital was expanding. But that's the difference between that era and ours, right? Is that we don't have rapidly expanding capital anymore, right? We don't. Since 2008.
That's actually, if I may, that's a crucial point for my city, at least, because we have a steel mill that's closing. It was a huge part of the local economy, and it's closing because of this is what they say, right? Like because they can't compete with Chinese steel. Chinese steel is a lot cheaper to import. That's a huge point of contention, a huge debate. My party says about it's like, well, then this company shouldn't have been privatized in the 90s, because it wasn't profitable.
Right.
Now you come with a more profitable enterprise that can't compete. Well, then you shouldn't have privatized it. But sorry to interrupt you. I wanted to highlight that because it's a great point.
That's a good point. And here's the thing: they could compete with Chinese steel, right? But that would sort of necessitate changing the relations of production, right? And producing steel based on the need rather than the profits of the owners and really the investors that own the sort of finance capital that financed the steel mill to begin with. And that's sort of where we are in the US, right? In 2008, speculation, rents, monopoly rents, and sort of stock buyback scams and asset price inflation became the primary mode of accumulation, right? And this changes everything. So these people who are reproletarianizing in our era get stuck in what I call the limbo of the reproletariat, and they get thrust into low-wage service labor that used to be, what teenagers would get a job as to sort of learn what work is like. Now as careers, they get thrust into gig work, and most importantly, thrust into debt, right? You got debt for an education, debt for a car, debt for a house, debt for everything. And so we see the class struggle really needing to find a place to organize somehow around debt. There's a lot of different ways to do that. We also see the demand for a new industrial economy here as central, But right now we're in this stage of having to overcome all of the detritus of the last period and really prove to the American people what a communist is. Because it's not, the blue-haired college kid that they hear about on cable news that's just going to scream at them about microaggressions or whatever. So what we're doing in the Communist Party is rooting ourselves in the communities that we're already within, rather than trying to build something outside of them and go into them as outsiders, showing people, hey, we're the people next door. We're the people whose kids go to school with yours, and we're here to help. That's why we have a community service initiative in the ACP. Our comrades in Colorado were cleaning hazardous waste out of the river. In New York, they were cleaning up the streets. In California, they were helping homeless people, getting them clothes. That sort of thing that can really help just cement ourselves within the community and bring that connection back that the last period of history's left destroyed. I think that's what I'd say we're doing mostly at the moment.
But more specifically, say you had to. I know because of the way that it lines up, and it's particularly in America, trying to run an election is for a newly birthed party is just out of the question. But perhaps it's something that takes more deliberation, more thought. But if you have something on the back of your mind that what if you were to run a campaign, what would you center it around? What would you be your core issues?
If I were to, full disclaimer, we have no plans to run national campaigns or anything like that. Once we're sort of a known entity within communities, then we'll look at running local.
Yeah, I mean,
but
if you're gonna do it, that's how you got to do it.
If we're in like sort of a theoretical situation, right? If we are going to run, Haas or someone for president, I think it would be.
You should run Henkel. I like Henkel.
Or Jackson. Yeah, definitely. I only think Oz because he's the chairman, right? And traditionally, that's who.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think we would run under cancel the debt, right? We'd run under bring back industry, and stable jobs and retirements. Making sure that every American,
I hadn't thought about that. That's important.
Can have one income per family, right? And that can actually provide for a dignified life. And we could do that literally by just taking money that the Pentagon lost, right? And revitalizing the Pentagon has quote unquote lost trillions of dollars multiple times. That is insane. And that could fund every
it would be insane if it wasn't by design.
Right, exactly. That could fund every single state subsidy we would ever need. I would also say that taking back America's resources for the American people would be good. Taking all of our farmland back from Bill Gates, taking our oil reserves back from ExxonMobil and Shell and BP, just taking them. I think that would be part of it as well.
And I'll end with this one question, with the last questions, because I don't want to take too much time for the other people who are going to come on. But for a local election, since the scope is so much smaller, any more considerations, any more key issues? I know when you get local, it ends up being very particular. But like just in Cleveland, just to give me something to think about.
In Cleveland, literacy is a big problem. 75% of adults in Cleveland, in my area, there's some areas that are over 90. Have a functional adult illiteracy rate. That's horrible. Yeah. So literacy programs tragic. Will be big. There's an issue of debt, and the city of Cleveland itself. Now, I'm not in Cleveland proper. Cleveland's sort of a makeup of a bunch of areas. It's kind of like New York, right? Like if you're in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
you're still in New York. I'm like that, right? We have Slavic Village, we have East Cleveland, Cleveland proper. We
I
have
mean, my town's the
Lakewood,
same. My town's the same way. I live in West
Right.
Bend, but that's like the greater Concepcion metropolitan area.
Precisely. And so, like, the city of Cleveland is currently sort of held hostage by the real estate cartels, right? And
Oh, I mean,
and buildings are falling apart.
you could be speaking about my city right now. It is a mess.
Well, it's everywhere, right? So,
Yeah. I mean,
taking the
you know,
point to them,
when you get people who speculate, you know, what asset appreciates better than land? It's
Mhm.
ridiculous. These people, you know, like they are just printing money. It's insane.
Well, and precisely, and the worst part about it is they leverage debt to buy more property,
Yeah.
to leverage more debt to buy more property, and it's all to drive up the asset price of that specific property without adding any new value to the economy. And so, with all these giant cartels doing this, the bottom of the economy is falling out because there's nothing more profitable than that Ponzi scheme. And the problem is when people stop putting into a Ponzi scheme, it starts falling apart. And that's what happens. And every single time they take more of the taxpayers' money to prop it back up and start the process all over again. So even in a local election, fighting against that, I think, is absolutely mandatory.
Yeah, that's something we did have in our scopes. The matter of real estate, but debt and retirement. That one stuck out to me. So yeah, thank you for taking your time, Noah. I hope the rest of the show runs smoothly, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, brother. If it does run smoothly, it's only because of your hard work.
That's not true. You got other people.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I'm not the only guy. Sorry if I'm
Very
crooked. I'm trying to. There you go. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
See you later, brother. All right. I really want to focus. Retirement is a big deal. In the USA right now, our elderly are thrown away by the ruling class. Thrown away, working your entire life, usually for one company, right? And then as soon as you're no good to them anymore, they toss you in the garbage. And you got to make it or break it on your own. With all the 401ks that got stolen and all that, Social Security, they keep gutting and gutting and gutting. The retirement age keeping getting higher and higher and higher. And people having to work more and more hours just to get by. My mom right now has stage 4 lung cancer. She worked her entire life, right? Until she couldn't. I mean, she's had a heart transplant and a kidney transplant. This is the toughest woman you'll ever meet, by the way. But now, where is she? She can't even get into a nice home that'll let her live out the last parts of her life in dignity. And it's tragic. And there's a reason for that. And it's because of our ruling class, right? All of these things could be funded, could be subsidized by the government, but they're not. Instead, they're sending billions and billions and billions of dollars to fucking Nazis in Ukraine. They're sending billions and billions of dollars to Zionists who are using it to mass murder children. That is what they're doing instead of taking care of our elderly. It's absolutely disgusting. Anyway, I'm sure we have another caller by now. What's up, Daniel? Who we got going next?
Hey, Noah, we've got Nyarlathotep. It's a H.P. Lovecraft reference, so I'm very proud that I can sort of butcher it, but not terrible. And let me just bring him in here. Nyarlathotep called in our first show, so they're coming back for more.
Excellent. We like regulars.
Yeah, totally. Nyarlathotep had some questions about potential advancements in the productive forces.
Interesting. All right. I'm not even going to try to say that name, brother. I apologize. But Go ahead. What do you got for us?
All right, my first question for you. This is unrelated to productive forces, other than puns. But what
Those are
happened when the horses?
horses in my book. Hey, whoa.
What happened when the horses were in love?
When the horses were in love. Let's see. Let's see. What do you guys think? What happened when the horses were in love? I don't know. You got to tell us where look of Batep.
They got married.
Mm.
Have you heard about the cowboy with the sore throat?
I have not. No.
Well, he had a hoarse voice. Yeah. To treat him, you might need to give him some cough syrup.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
You're my favorite guy, man.
Yeah. I saw some grizzlies fighting. I guess they were using bare hands.
I knew that one. Right? Maybe they were American grizzlies and they had the right to bear arms.
Or in the case of that Simpsons meme, armed bears.
Yeah. Well, both. You know.
Well, if they're singing, I'm sure it's in baritone.
Well, maybe I'll have to embarrass myself. All right. I'm getting no laughs. I know you're way funnier than me. It's funny. Every time I think of puns and The Simpsons, I don't know why there's this amazing episode of that show, and I grew up on The Simpsons, by the way. Where do you remember the one where Lisa and Nelson start dating? And Lisa goes over to Nelson's house at one point, and he's got a big poster on his wall that says "Nuke the Whales." And she looks at it and she's like, "Nuke the whales?" And he's like,
gotta nuke something.
One of my favorite jokes of all time. But
it sure was a blast.
Yeah. Go on with your. I'm sorry.
Sure. As far as some of my questions go, earlier you were talking with one of the callers about a lot of the service sector jobs and stuff like that. Say you have some service sector workers who are interested in learning productive forces, trades, stuff like that. Which ones would you suggest are currently in most demand or currently the most promising for someone who's like a layperson to get involved in?
That's a great question. The building trade. So I'm a finisher. And when we talk about the trades or being a tradesman, you're either in the building trades or the finishing trades, right? So the building trades are more heavy. Sort of my wife's entire family are all pipe fitters, right? That's a building trade. I'm a finished carpenter. So rather than a building carpenter, I'm doing the last stuff in a house, or I'm fixing stuff like I'm building staircases, decks, cabinets, that kind of stuff, right? But I would suggest the building trades over the finishing trades. Only because the unions are a lot stronger. And believe it or not, there are quite a few of them that, because there's so little actual productive labor and building going on, there are a few of them that are always looking for people because people just don't know that they're still around. Believe it or not, the insulators, for instance, are also good friends, and they're putting on classes for apprentices every few months. A lot of those old unions, like the pipe fitters, are a really strong union from back in the day. You basically need someone to vouch for you. But the insulators aren't like that. The carpenters union is great. The electricians union is great. Most of these unions have training programs, and I would recommend going through them because it's a lot like, I always sort of compare it to music. I come out of music. I played in semi-professionally most of my life. And any guitar teacher will tell you, don't try to teach yourself. Because when you actually take lessons and begin learning how to play correctly, you'll have a lot of bad habits you have to unlearn. That's how finished carpentry was for me, believe it or not. I began by just sort of cobbling stuff together from other. I came out of mud taping actually, but so when I actually apprenticed under a guy, he was everything I was doing was wrong. He's like, dude, have you ever held a nail gun in your life? And I'm like, of course, I've done this a million times. He's like, you're doing it backwards. So like, get the training. It's a lot of the time it's really simple and easy to go through, and these unions are looking for people. So I would suggest within the building trades, look what's available in your area and look at the unions. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. Does that answer your question? Zerlapadapatup?
Well, a couple. I have a kind of a few small follow-up ones.
Sure, go ahead.
As someone who's been a trade person, what inventions do you think would really improve things on the ground for people in that trade right now? What would definitely unlock those productive forces?
For my trade,
What kind of tools? What kind of gadgets? What kind of stuff like that?
For finishing, okay, there's something we built at my shop that we wish they put on there. The main maker of ladders in the US is Werner. And we use quite a lot of extension ladders where, up hanging trim on the outside of houses, 40 feet in the air, that kind of stuff, right? The problem with ladders is that the technology for extension ladders is still directly from when they were invented, and it's never gotten better, except maybe the quality of ropes sometimes, right? So you pull a rope that's in a pulley, and you the rope hangs down behind the ladder, so you got to pull it out from around the side. As you pull it out from around the side, that rope frays and has a tendency to get caught in the pulley, meaning your ladder sticks about halfway up, and you got to do all kinds of stuff to safely climb up it in order to unstick it to get the ladder out. So what we did was just come up with a 4-pulley system to pull the rope to the side, and then it's on the side. If ladder producers put that on it, they would dominate the market and drive every other ladder producer out of business in a heartbeat.
Well, one question to follow up on that is, if a carpenter is drunk, would they be hammered?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I guess if a carpenter starts taking acting lessons,
they'd also be
might
screwed.
Their performances be a little wooden?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, well,
all right.
That said, getting to I guess a unrelated question: what if there are natural resources or resources that our current powers that be, our current productive forces, do not yet recognize it? What if we come up with ways to use existing objects or existing things, anything from the air, or wastewater, as something genuinely productive? How might that best be leveraged to help the productive trades or productive forces in general?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Can you?
I know it's very. I know it might be very context specific. Like the classic example might be solar and sunlight to generate electricity. But what if someone finds a way to say turn gases in the atmosphere into productive building materials for 3D printing, or stuff like that?
I think that's sort of thinking outside the box and using what exists in new ways is always how the human race has moved forward. If you look at like sort of all the big technological leaps, everything was already there. People just found out new ways to use them. And I think the reindustrialization of the US is going to have to be a sort of future-looking industrialization, right? Rather than sort of oldie-timey, you're covered in soot and blah, blah, blah. Very, reliant on technology and the massive amount of work technology itself can do for us. Where guys used to build a deck by pounding nails in, I'm using a nail gun, right? And saving a
Mhm.
tremendous amount of time. We're always improving that way. And I think communism is the only way to sort of get rid of the fetters on the forces of production that we have now holding us back because of the profits necessary to maintain the economic relationships and get sort of returns on investments for finance capital. Technology is held back. I mean, we see this all over in every industry, and it's sad. There's only one solution to it, and it's communism.
Well, to kind of build on that, I know in the '90s and the early 2000s, there's the cypherpunk movement and then the maker movement built on a lot of the open source software and such. Now we're seeing a lot of open source hardware, like everything from 3D printers to various types of electronics, Arduinos, and so on. What about, say, the logical advancement of that in genuine open source AI design? Just like you can ask ChatGPT to write you a computer program that can calculate pi to 10 digits or something without knowing any programming. What about that with, say, engineering or architecture? Ask an AI chat agent to design you a deck schematic or something like that.
Yeah, I think AI is the future of everything. I think AI can be used to do so much of our work that the actual work day could go down from where it is now. I mean, I work 8 to 12 hours every day, right? Could go down to 3 or 4 easy, just with just utilizing AI to its fullest capacity. Unfortunately, civilians are nowhere near even aware of the full capacity of AI in 2024, right? I think this is an even bigger revolution in technology. AI plus the internet is an even bigger revolution in technology than the spinning jenny was, than steam power was. And that's what kicked off industrial capitalism. I think we're on the edge of the forces of production outmoding the relations of production, because what happens when jobs can mostly be done by AI and a few people in a couple hours that used to take teams of thousands weeks to do, right? It calls into question the entire boss worker relationship, and leads us into, well, what's the other primary one? It's debt and debtor, right? And so that's one of the reasons I think reproletarianization is so important.
Well, to kind of build on some of the stuff you're saying, for a lot of the AI and internet, translating that to the physical world encounters some problems. Some of what you've mentioned, like debts and landlords, because as from William Z. Foster's Political History of the Americas, he mentions that even though the Spanish and Portuguese colonies had a few centuries head start on, say, the English, they still didn't have the development of the English colonies simply because they were stuck in the feudal mode of production.
Mm-hmm.
So overcoming that debt, that landlord problem, is probably going to be one of the major issues in advancing the productive forces in America.
Yeah, it's been a problem for all of human history, really. Going way back to like ancient Sumeria, and the Roman Empire and all of these, debt and the problem of compounding interest have created oligarchies, right?
Yeah, I heard that in ancient Egypt, there's a pharaoh who invented financial fraud. It was the pyramid scheme.
What was that?
It was the pyramid scheme. They couldn't believe it because they were deep in denial.
Oh, I love you, brother. All right. On that note,
all right, well, that's enough. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for your call. Have a great night.
All right.
I think though that people really don't get how central debt is to everything. The entire project of sort of the liberal revolutionaries and original, like, sort of, Lockean political economy, the giants of it, like Adam Smith and David Ricardo, they were trying to overcome this problem of the creation of oligarchies. And this happens through debt, right? That I mean, even think about, like, before money, right? How did people pay for things? Back in the ye olden days, right? You were a peasant farmer, right? You go into the tavern. You didn't have money in your pocket. You didn't carry your grain with you and trade it for beer. No, you borrowed that beer. You had a tab and they wrote it down, right? And they would, when you had your harvest, you would pay it back in your grain, right? Or whatever you're growing, your carrots, whatever. It's an imaginary peasant. He can grow whatever he wants, or she. It's whatever kind of peasant you want them to be, right? But they would, the peasant, because he's my peasant, he's a guy, and he has a big blonde beard, like down to here. He's a very weird peasant. He wears a straw hat, and he pays for his drinks in the grain at harvest time. Now, what happens if their village was attacked and their fields were burned? He goes into debt. Now he has to work that debt off, right? And so because this would sort of create merchants who would get rich off of this, this creates a necessity for the crown or the emperor or whomever to cancel debts so as not to have a threat to their power and their riches and blah, 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 right? And excuse me, in the middle of this, Dust, if you have a problem, it's a call-in show, buddy. Call in. Stop whining in my chat. All right, sorry about that. So I think that so they would cancel the debts, right? Whenever this would happen. And guess what? That worked. Where are we again, right? We are again in a place where we've had an oligarchy develop out of these debts, out of financialization. There's only one thing you can do with debts that no one can pay. You get rid of them, right? And that's precisely what we want to do. Get rid of the debts. Anyway, Daniel, my man, who do we have next, brother?
Hey, Noah. We've got our friend Wizbong.
Yo, what up?
Hello, Wizbong. What's up?
Man? Oh, just about to get stuck in a debt trap with student loans and everything, but hey, you know what? It is what it is.
I feel your pain, brother. Believe me. Like most Americans do, I think.
It's horrible. So I got a Pell Grant on it, and it doesn't cover the whole thing, so you still got to go through private loaners, and the interest rates and just everything is just the worst thing possible. And it's outrageous they believe people can even pay these off.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think they're designed so you don't pay it off, right?
It's a horrible debt trap.
Exactly, because they make money off of that, and the more debts they get coming in, the more loans they can give out and keep the interest rolling in and rolling in and rolling in. It's a disgusting thing to do. It's a complete parasite. It provides nothing.
Well, it's predatory too, in the fact that they're offering 12% interest rates as a logistical answer to students who are like 18 and 20, just as they're starting off in life, already just sort of predatorily taking advantage of them.
Okay, so what's your question?
Well, one of the things that I noticed as I was starting working at Home Depot and Walmart and all that sort of stuff, I noticed that they have these sort of anti-union videos. I'm sure you've seen those, right, on YouTube, where they love to say that they're not exactly anti-union, but they're not exactly for them. So my question is, their propaganda methods are very unique in the fact that they like to target out specific things such as union dues and uh, lack of individual freedom. So what's the best way you believe we can combat this anti-union rhetoric that they try to instill in workers immediately, trying to convince them that their best interest isn't necessarily for them?
It's a good question, brother. So I think it depends on the actual way they're delivering this. Is it in videos? Is it the management sort of pushing this into the workforce, or is this part of a sort of like just general thing they get from the media?
And typically, what I noticed was it was actually during their training videos as they're getting them through. I believe it's more of a scare tactic to push them away from unionizing. Now, I work at T-Mobile now, so I didn't see that sort of rhetoric either. In fact, my boss and I went to high school together, so he couldn't really give a shit about that.
So he's going to be for real with you, probably.
Yeah.
Right. So I would recommend, if it's in the training videos, one of the best ways to do it is going to be mocking the training videos.
Yeah.
Just like, did you see all this nonsense? Them treating us like we're kids, like we don't know that paying union dues actually contributes to a fund that helps you bargain for more wages. I mean, like, do they think we don't have the internet and we can't look up how much more money on average union workers make than non-union workers? I mean, come on, that kind of thing. When you really diminish it because it's not a person and you can make it about the video and how silly and corny it is, I think that really works well.
So then my next question comes from, what are your thoughts exactly on, say, union dues? Do you believe that necessarily that's a weakness in unions, or do you believe that's a strength for unions?
I think they're good and they're necessary. Union dues are specifically how a particular form of proletarian organization functions, right? And these the dues are actually used for something that goes towards the functioning of the union itself, right? It pays your organizers, it pays the sort of officers who are running around making political moves for the union. It pays lawyers. It raises strike funds, all this kind of stuff, right? I'd say it's a lot different than dues for, say, a communist party, because they're different types of organizations, right? So, I'd say, dues. And here's the thing: there are a lot of bad unions. Don't get me wrong. There are some unions that take your dues and can't or won't do anything for you. We call them company unions, right?
Yeah. Well, there's even examples of, say, like mobsters, who I believe would have actually been government influenced mobsters who went into unions to discredit them, help further push the agenda of these industrial overlords that we see.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You cut out for a minute for me.
I do believe that there is sort of a push from the imperial powers, say, like, for example, mobsters in New York, like the mafia, right? They would take advantage of unions and union delegates and push forward their agenda. I believe that also played a role, though, in a working partnership with, say, the federal government of the United States to further discredit unions.
Definitely. 100%. And the federal government used that, especially during the sort of rise of what people call neoliberalism, right? The Reagan era, to discredit unions, like you said. And the mafia was holding unions hostage, and it's stealing pensions and creating a sort of no bid zone around certain projects, then not getting them done, stealing material. The list is a mile long, and I think this ties into how Marx and Engels looked at these declassed elements, as they called them, or the dangerous class, the lumpen proletariat, that that as a class, like, so as this sort of more organized section, they are not allies of the proletariat. Now, in individual cases, sure, they can come with us, but you see the damage they did to the organizations of the proletariat and the unions, especially the building trades of New York in the 60s. Oh man, it was just shot through with mafia, and even here in Cleveland, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but Danny Green is a name that everybody here knows to this day, right? For a reason. Well, was that your only question? Do you have another one for us?
I do believe I do. So what are your thoughts on, say, the global rise, or I wouldn't say it's global, I would say it's more on the internet, the rise of neo-Nazis. I see a lot of them on Twitter going into their playbook. They like to take advantage of economic situations. What's your recommendation for combating Nazis? Because clearly they don't go off of what a rational person would think of, or as normal people like me and you think of. So what do you necessarily see in their mind, and how we can combat them?
I think they're one of the primary problems right now. Just being real with you. A few months ago, when they started really popping up on social media, I wasn't super concerned, because I was like, oh, they're obviously being boosted. There's no way it's a coincidence that, the ruling class were telling us that the anti-Zionist Palestine solidarity movement were all anti-Semites and they couldn't find any. Then suddenly there's anti-Semites being pushed, right? But now, after having combated them in the sort of war of positions for a while, I think they're a bigger threat than I thought at first. Because here's the thing.
Did you actually?
When we get to these acute crises, right? Like what the era we're entering right now, people realize that the status quo and everything they've been taught ain't cutting it. Democrats ain't cutting it. Republicans ain't cutting it. MAGA didn't work. So what do? They start looking for answers. And so there is a section of society that can easily fall into this rabbit hole, because it's there and it's publicized and it has the exact outcomes the ruling class wants, which is the division of the working class. This is why you see, the fake left boosted and them boosted, right? So I think taking them seriously is step one in combating them. Step two is knowing the facts, knowing where they're wrong and their philosophical ridiculousness. At the end of the day, they believe in magic, right? They believe that a person's ethnicity or religion controls what they do, and that there are secret conspiracies of entire ethnicities and religions bent on world domination, right? That's what they believe. And so when we put that in those real terms and say, well, even if you are correct, it doesn't explain what the problem actually is. You can't just end at all these people are Jewish. It's stupid. That doesn't tell us anything about what causes what, right? Which, by the way, they're not correct. Our elites have always been Anglo-Saxon from the beginning. They have names like Rockefeller, Morgan, DuPont, Carnegie, Mellon, Ford. I mean, we could go on and on and on. They used to call them WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, right? And so when we make the connection for the decay, the decline of our infrastructure, our living conditions, our wages, all of this to finance capital, which is the actual cause, it beats out any silly argument they have, it makes them sound silly. The only thing you have to watch out for is, like you said, their comfort with the irrational, right? So
Yeah.
you have to always draw attention to that and the silliness of it. And that would be the advice I would give you for that. But thank you so
Yeah,
much
and
for the questions.
no problem. And I do have one more question.
Okay,
And this one's just
make
a
it
fun
quick
one.
because we're running.
Do you consider Missouri to be a Midwest?
Oh yeah, of course.
We have a Culver's. I mean, that's all I gotta say, right?
There you go, brother. Yes, you're one of us.
Amen, brother.
All
All
right.
right. Well, I appreciate you, dude. You're awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. All
No
right,
problem,
real
man.
quick before we get to the next caller. Slava, thank you so much for the super sticker, the $5. You are amazing, my sister, my friend, and my comrade. El Jimenez, another $5, and thank you. Holy crap, you guys are great. And Long Guy 1990 says, I'm donating this to you on behalf of Dust. Aw, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Dust really loves us a lot. All right. Well, there we go. Remember, we are a completely people-funded institute. Every dollar in our budget is thanks to you guys, and you have no idea how much we appreciate it. We really, really do. So if you got a few bucks and you want to help fund the class struggle, there you go. All right, let's keep moving. We got about a half hour left in the show tonight. Who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey Noah, we're gonna talk with Andy next, but before I bring Andy on, I just wanted to say to Dust James, Dust, we're trying to get you unbanned from the Discord so that you can come onto the stream and talk or debate or whatever it is that you need to do with Noah. Please reach out to us. We're trying. We looked and we don't see your name on the ban list, so we just need to know your screen name so that you can air out your grievances. But we're gonna bring Andy on. Yeah, we're gonna bring Andy on. Andy has some questions about the ACP's positions around environmentalism.
All right, Andy, what's up, brother? How you doing? Make sure you unmute yourself.
Red salute, comrade. This is Andy.
Nice to speak to you, brother. What's going on? What's your question?
Yeah, so I was wondering, kind of like a two-part question. If you could speak to a Marxist-Leninist insight or analysis of ecological overshoot, if you have any understanding of that or know about it. And B, given the direness of the situation of climate change, what is ACP's position, or how would we address that?
So the second question I can answer right away, but you're gonna have to. I'm a little stupid. Let me know what ecological overshoot means.
Sure. Yeah. The basic concept of it is that in nature we observe that if a species is able to use like all of the resources that it can without any like negative downward pressure on it, then it will. And oftentimes what they do is they use as much resources as they can until they reach a point where they have killed off all of their resources, and then their population goes extinct in that area. And we extrapolate this to the human race and see that we are already in a overshoot curve, the same exact curve that we witness in other species. And basically every single day that goes by of our modern civilization is another day that we're actually getting worse and worse on that curve. So that's kind of like my first major question. I don't see a lot of Marxists talking about this at all, actually, because it's like so many scientists talk about it, but a lot of them are just like focused on the live position. Yada, yada.
Which is unfortunate because you get all these like ridiculous fake plans like the Green New Deal and nonsense, right? That where's their Green New Deal? How have they helped the environment, right? They haven't. Pollution's a huge problem. But here's my thing. So I'd have to really look into the notion of ecological overshoot to give you a sort of Marxist I couldn't be concrete enough, basically. But I do think that it sounds like there's something to such a notion, right? That we are sort of past the point right now where we can be in balance with the nature around us. I think, though, that it is necessity that has always driven humanity forward. That, like Marx says, that humanity never sets for itself a goal that it cannot already accomplish, and is not actually in the process already of accomplishing. Now, what do I mean by that? That sounds, flowery and philosophically. I mean that in the 1970s, all of the scientists were telling us that the world was going to run out of oil by the year 2000, right? That we were going to run out of oil. We would have no more electricity. We would all be screwed. But what happened? There's still oil. They haven't stopped burning oil. What they did, I mean, they didn't find new oil. They didn't find out how to, synthesize it out of nothing. What they did was find a more efficient way to use oil. So they're using less and getting more out of it. And I think that this is precisely how the Chinese have approached their relationship with ecology and nature. They have an entire theoretical sort of body of work they call the ecological civilization. And it's about the harmony of interest between nature and society as part of nature, right? The PLA, I think it was 2 years ago now, planted a forest the size of Ireland in China, so that as they grow their productive forces, they do not do so in a way that destroys the natural beauty of the landscape or that pollutes the air like they used to, right? And I think that in the US, we're going to have to adopt something similar here. Now, we don't have the industrial production here anymore that China does. They've way outpaced us by at least double of industrial production, right? But as we bring a production back with an eye to sort of updating all the technology and all of the federal subsidies we can give towards such such projects, I think that an American ecological civilization would just make sense, especially because it's our military. And I mean, I think it's 4 of our conglomerates that are responsible for like 90% of the world's pollution. So how that ties into your first one, I wish I could give you a better answer, but I think it could. I would just have to learn more about the concept.
Okay. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was hoping to do, is just bring it up, because I think it's a blind spot kind of for a lot of Marxists who haven't really considered it, especially given that there's been a lot of breadbasket failures across the globe these past few years, and it's actually going to get worse. And that's kind of like something that seems like could go cause a lot of us to go extinct. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I think a lot of Marxists steer clear of it because liberals can be so annoying, and they try to take ownership of the entire subject of the environment, right? So anytime you hear the environment, you think lib, and you're like, oh God, you know what I mean? But I think you're right. We can develop a blind spot because of that, and it's good to always have our eyes on the prize and never have any sort of like blind spots at all. All right. Well, thank you so much. Oh, and you know what? Future Homestead just became a member for 9 months and says that all comrades should check out John Bellamy Foster. Now, John Bellamy Foster has written a lot on ecology from a sort of Marxist perspective. I've only read a little bit of his work, and it was a criticism of an ex-student of his, this guy Sato, and him taking a sort of Malthusian turn. And he sort of criticized that while still upholding his Marxist ecology, as he calls it. So I'd recommend looking into him if this is your area of interest, brother. I think you'll really like him.
Will do. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right. Yeah, I think we'll keep moving, but I think that our last caller was correct. I think we can sort of allow subjects to be owned by the liberals, and we shouldn't, right? Like, so when a liberal begins talking about this subject or that subject, they claim ownership over it, and because they can be so grating and so annoying, we sometimes tend to let them have it and just go, whoa, we're done with that subject altogether. Screw you guys, right? But I think it's to our detriment. We should have an analysis of everything. That's just me. But yeah, what we don't have a whole lot more time, so let's keep it moving. Who do we got next, Daniel?
We've got K-Dog, aka Keith.
K-Dog, aka Keith. All right. How you doing, K-Dog, aka Keith? How are you?
Keith,
are you
we're not
muted,
hearing
brother?
right now.
Keith, are you there? Hello.
Yes,
Excellent.
I'm here.
What's up, brother? How
Okay,
you
can you
doing
hear me
tonight?
now?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. So, I really like your show. I've been a fan of Midwestern Marx for a few months now. Love you, Eddie, and Carlos, and you're getting the second eco-Marxist in a row. I hope you can take it.
Okay, bring it on. Let's do it.
Okay, now I don't want to waste time talking about overshoot and all that stuff, but
Sure.
I'm going to get straight to. We can get back to some of that if you'd like. But the thing is, I want to push something that the ACP could really use to like get all the eco-socialists on board and shit, understand it and everything.
Okay,
And
what's
that is
that?
this concept. Okay, it's a concept called carbon fee and dividend.
Carbon
And you got to
what
get the
dividend?
words right. Carbon fee and dividend.
Okay.
Okay. Now you got to get the words right. You do a little research on this, you got to get the words right. And here's why. Because all sorts of people talk about a carbon tax.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, carbon tax, what's that? Capitalist? Is that socialist? What the hell is it? Nobody knows. It means some people's taking some money and putting it in their pocket, for all we know.
Mhm.
Carbon fee and dividend. Okay. I already said a bad word, tax.
Mm.
And so it's like a cartoon, you got a costume and you put on a fake horse's head. You're not a horse. Okay. So let's just talk about the relationship to a tax. All right. Where oil comes out of the ground, where coal comes out of the ground, where you cut down a forest to ship it to Germany so that they can do whatever with it. You take some of the money and you take that money, and this is the only relationship to a tax, and you take that money and you distribute it equally to every man, woman, and child, every citizen in your country. Okay, everybody has got a credit card now. Money appears on it because anytime somebody fills up, there's like you fill up your tank. What's it cost now? $100 sometimes. Hey, what if $5 with that you got back? So that $5 of that appeared on your credit card. Now, here's the deal. Rich people that waste, go boating, go down the Grand Canyon, Lake Mead, spend whatever, jump out of airplanes, do all sorts of nasty environmental shit, they're paying for it because they have to pay more. But an average Joe like me or you maybe, who're just driving down, going to work and stuff, we'll actually be getting some money back. Okay. And what does this do? Why do I like it so much? Well, I'm talking to the choir. This is like socialist. This is like, you started a UBI program. Oh, you mean what else can we do? How else can we recover the commons from the theft by the capitalist class? That's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about recovering the commons in a nonviolent way.
Yeah, that's
and beginning to use the because we got, look, what kind of revolution do we want, right? I mean, we want one that saves society, because that's what I'm into. That's why I'm an eco-socialist. That's why I'm an eco-Marxist. That's why I'm watching you guys, and that's why I want to join the ACP. That's why you can. There's a lot of people like me, I think. And what do you say?
Well, I think it's an interesting form of redistribution, right? Based around who we perceive as harming the environment, right? Without looking into it, I can't give you a solid answer on what my feelings really are, because all I have is sort of, we're truncated here because we're at the end of the show and we got to be brief. But for me,
I've written about it.
I think that for me, I like solutions that rather than addressing a symptom, right? Address the core problem itself and make it so the conditions that produce that symptom are no longer there, right? And so this is how I get sort of my more anti-immigrant coworkers on board for anti-imperialism, right? I tell them that, like building a border wall or whatever seems to me like you're trying to take a Tylenol for a headache that is actually because of a brain tumor, right? Like, why are people coming into the US? They're coming into the US because trade deals like NAFTA and TPP and whatever have destroyed their homes. People don't just flee their homes for no reason or because they think, Wyoming seems like a cool place to live. No, they do it because they're forced to. And so with this sort of really interesting idea, the carbon fee to dividend system you bring up, my only question would be, well, is it possible to, instead of, creating a system where we're having people pay for things that damage the environment, can we instead develop technology that allows us to fly or go in boats or whatever it is without damaging the environment as much? That's where my brain goes to. You know what I mean?
Well, there's one thing I didn't mention about it.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
And that is who sets the fee? And that is a citizens' assembly sets the fee.
Okay,
a
very
Soviet
cool.
sets the fee.
Well, I'll tell you what, I
And
like the sound of a
to me,
citizens'
that's
assembly.
a fundamental issue. And there are a lot of people that immediately jump in and water it down, and that's just the bourgeoisie reclaiming it.
Of course.
What I'm talking about is we're talking about people governing and, having, whatever entity gets set up to actually, administer it. The people that set the fee are coming, some of them being drafted, like you get like be going to jury duty, for Christ's sake,
Yep.
excuse me. And
Very true.
and that's one thing I didn't mention about it. That's like super important.
Well, I'm gonna look into the notion. I'd never heard of it before. All the
there's one
ecological
thing
stuff is sort of foreign to me. I just haven't. My most of my training's in theory and in dialectics. So, tell you what, give us a call back on another show, and I'll have looked into it, and we can have a longer discussion about it. I'd like to. It sounds interesting.
Okay, and keep me online after you, because I want to give you a link to my website.
Sure. Why don't you put it in the text chat for Noah's show on the Discord, and
okay, I'll
be able to check it out from there.
Okay, will do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, brother, and thank you for your call.
Okay.
Thank
you. Love your show. Love you guys.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, guys, we are rolling along here. That was K-Dog, aka Keith. I like saying both at once because I'm a fan of terrible dad jokes, and that's just me. You guys are gonna have to deal with that. Back from the road with the 20. Thank you so much. He says, great to hear more ecological takes and focus from y'all. We definitely cannot concede the position as caretakers for the health of our planet to anyone. Hells yeah. I mean, if we don't take care of it, who do we trust to do so? The ruling class? I mean, look who got us here, right? I don't trust them. Do you trust them? I don't trust them. Anyway, let's move it along because we're getting late here. Who do we have next, Daniel? Looks like Daniel is muted, but that's okay.
Oops, sorry about that. My bad, amateur hour. We've got
Welcome
Adam.
to my world.
Yeah, exactly. Adam has a question about some edgy tweets, some saucy tweets, and the ACP's position on
edgy tweets,
LGBTQ and issues related to that. So I'll let you guys have a nice little chat.
Sure, excellent. What was your name's Adam?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
First off, I just want to qualify. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just want to qualify by saying, I'm a big fan of Midwestern Marx and what the American Communist Party is doing. I just want to clarify by saying that.
Awesome. Well,
I'm part of like an organization, a Marxist-Leninist organization in California, and we do have like a good number of trans people and LGBTQ plus people in the organization, and I will say that they do definitely have a problem with how Jackson Hinkle has talked about trans people and gay people. Particularly, I was looking at his Twitter and I seen some posts like basically promoting violence against protesters protesting for gay and trans rights in other countries. And so I was wondering like what the party's policy is going to be on that. And yeah.
Yeah, no. So I get what you're saying. I've heard this a few times by now, since being friends with Jim.
And like just to qualify, like the last tweet that I seen of this was 4 months ago, and I haven't seen any qualifications on this, any apologies or anything. So that
I get what you. Yeah. Okay. So I want to come at this question two ways for you, brother. The first is that the American Communist Party doesn't care who you're attracted to or what grown adults do or how they express themselves, right? If you are down for the class struggle and you can put the proletariat before everything, then you're fine by us. And that's always going to be the ACP's position. We care about results above everything. We care about American communism above everything. And that's above the personal opinions of our members, even if they're leaders, right? That's above everything. Second, I think that rightists in the US, well, they're not really rightists, they're more anti-leftist, right? They don't get a lot right. But one of the things they get right is that the left has no sense of humor and takes itself very seriously. And with a guy like Jackson, and especially the way he operated really on social media, part of that humor is a sort of is a successful way that he's been able to get millions and millions of people to reconsider their feelings on communism. And this includes gay people. It includes trans people, right? I think that the sort of left LGBT movement itself often takes ownership of things that it doesn't actually own, such as gay people, right? When it doesn't speak for all gay people, what it does is speaks for all gay left people. And that's a big difference, right? But
they use them as a pawn, essentially.
Through humor and stuff like this. And I mean, it's obviously not serious. Is opened himself into other parts of social media that usually people on the left cannot get into, and then brings them into communist algorithms, has them rethinking their stance on communism. I mean, this guy actually has Alex Jones, of all people, rethinking his stance on JV Stalin. If that's not success, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? And so when I talk about putting the proletariat first and communism first and class struggle first, this is what I mean. I don't agree with Jackson on everything. I don't need to, right? I mean, I love the guy. He's a friend of mine. But what matters for us as a communist movement and party, as the Communist Party of the US, is results, is the class struggle. And so a lot of the sort of cancel culture that is used to divide us up, we stand on the other side of. We don't care what we agree or disagree on. If we can agree on that thing, then we can be friends, we can be comrades, we can fight for it together. I hope that answers your question.
So I guess one clarification I would like to ask about.
Sure.
Like, first off, what I have been seeing, and like what I'm talking about specifically is like I saw videos of trans protests supporting trans rights in other countries, and then people beating up those protesters, and then Jackson posting these videos and saying, this is what they do to trans people in other countries or whatever. And
so
that personally, to me, that doesn't
anything.
seem like a joke.
So he wasn't endorsing anything. He was saying,
but
like,
what does that tweet mean
between the US and some other country?
But I guess, like, what would be the message behind that then otherwise?
Well, I think to me that says that there is a far different idea of what things constitute a left in the US than there are in other countries. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the sort of color revolutions and National Endowment for Democracy and USAID and all these other organizations that back these protests, right? That I think you may be focusing on some.
But those aren't the people who are getting beat up.
Well, let me finish. Hold on. I think you may be focusing on something and reading into it something that isn't there, right? I find we all do this from time to time because we have these sort of narratives that we build up, and when we see things that tend to confirm a preconception we have, we sort of attach it to that narrative rather than sort of look at it from the point of view of where it comes from on its own and allow it to be concrete in its own context. And I think that I don't even know what you're talking about, so I can't chase down tweets all day, right? But it sounds to me like you said originally he was endorsing violence, but that isn't what he said, right? And I would be shocked to find that Jackson endorses violence for anyone ever, because I've heard him say publicly many times and privately many times that he in no way endorses violence against anyone. So I think that we should be very careful about such accusations and try to judge things on their own merit for what they are, rather than allowing sort of narratives to form and our brains to fill in the blanks, even though, and I think this is really important, I'm not saying this is you doing this, I'm saying this is humanity, human beings doing this, because that's how brains work. We look for patterns and our brains fill in the blanks and recognize patterns. It's sort of like when you look at words and there's a letter missing and you're reading, you'll read that letter, even though it's missing if you've read it a whole bunch of times, right? So I that would be my advice. And I would just say judge on the actual actions of the party rather than, you know, what anyone's saying or joking around or anything like that. I hope that helps and
Okay.
answers your question, brother.
Yeah. And definitely if it is like that, then I'm totally misconstruing it. To me, yeah, obviously to me, what it looked like was someone saying, you know, this is how we treat people in other country in like a negative connotation. Um, and I was just looking at it and thinking like this looks like class divisionism. It looks like they're, you know, attacking a portion of the working class. But definitely, if it is what you're saying it is, then I am completely wrong, and I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. And I full disclosure, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I wish I had more context. But
yeah, if you go to his Twitter and you just search the terms gay or trans, because that's all I did, and then I just went to latest, and then the videos
Right.
I'm pretty sure they just show up at the top.
It sounds to me like, no offense here, but it sounds like you were looking for something, right? So
Well, I mean,
that
when I'm talking to people and
could be
they have
a
problems,
little bit
I
more.
definitely want
I'm
to
sorry.
be able to look into it. You know.
Right? No. What I mean, I'm not
Well,
saying
you know,
anything
people
negative about it. I'm saying that, like, I think that the pattern you went there looking for something, so that pattern recognition that I'm talking about that our brains do could be sort of informing you without you knowing it. That's how it works, right? But yeah, to me it sounds like,
that is,
I mean,
sure.
that's how color revolution movements work. That's how NGOs work. They sort of prop up liberal movements in order to
But I feel like
people, right?
yeah, but I feel like there should be a clarification on that. Then, like, I feel like if a trans person sees that and they just see this is how they're treated in other countries, with not talking about but this is bad, or this is because these are a bunch of color revolution people, like they're just gonna see, oh, this person looks like they're supporting supporters of my rights getting attacked,
Well,
and I've been trying to push the people in my organization to join the party, and this is a huge contention. This is the only contention, actually.
Well, see, this is where I think all of our sort of preconceptions that like lead us to where we are really define how we view things subjectively, right? Because my mind, when I see any violence in another country, I immediately think American involvement. I think corporate oligarchy. I think NED. I think USAID, right? And they're very, very much known to use this sort of woke, liberal sort of what's the word, activism as part of their sort of destabilization campaigns. So that's where my mind went. But your mind, coming from a different history, went somewhere else. What I would suggest is just trying to hold all of that up to scrutiny. That's what I do anyway. And maybe help your friends do that as well. Because at the end of the day, I know Jackson personally, like I said, and he couldn't care less who you're attracted to. He couldn't care less, you know, what you do as a grown adult. It's the issues that he has is the issue anyone has, right? That's ideology within schools, and especially when regards to another country, meddling in their affairs by our ruling class. So yeah, I wish I could give you more time because I'd be happy to like speak about this at more length, but we are like coming up on the end of the show right now. So give us a call back and
No, you're okay. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, brother. I'm glad I could help even a little bit. All right, let's do.
All right, I hope that'll work to convince them. Goodbye.
I didn't even catch what he said. I hope it was funny because he kind of giggled. So should we do one more, or maybe we should? Oh, that's it. We're at time, so we are going to go out like we always do. I want to thank all of my callers for tonight. Oh, and thank you so much, Long Guy, who Dusty James told me he wants me to have another $5. Dustin is really generous tonight. Thank you so much, Dust, for giving this money to Long Guy for us. We really appreciate it. All of it will be used on the class struggle. And yeah, we will see everybody next Monday at 4:45 p.m. Eastern for another Noah's show. Until then, have a great rest of your week. I hope it is
based. Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations, we've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama, in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and